Hello, welcome to Library Connection. I'm Mandy Cantrell, Youth Services Director at the B.B. Comer Memorial Library here in Sylacauga. Before I get started, I want to thank TV47 for all they do to help us put on our program. And today, you can see I'm wearing my summer reading t-shirt, and one of our summer reading program performers is joining me today. Barry Stewart Mann is here today. Thank you so much for coming all the way from Atlanta for our program and early for TV.
Yes. Well, it is a pleasure to be with you, Mandy. And this is my second time coming to Sylacauga,
yes.
So I'm very excited to be back and to have an opportunity to tell stories in Sylacauga.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear your tail wagging tales. Our theme is about animals, so that's going to fit just perfectly, I know. Well, tell me about yourself, just a little bit, where you're from.
Well, I was born in New Jersey. And my family moved to West Palm Beach, Florida when I was 12 years old. Okay. And so I grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida. And then I went off, I went to college in Boston, Massachusetts, lived in New York for a while, pursuing a career as an actor. Then moved off to San Diego, California, where I got my graduate degree in theater. So I have a Master of Fine Arts in Theater. And was pursuing acting in San Diego, but somehow I got kind of connected with a storyteller and learned about storytelling, which is kind of like acting, but different. In acting, we're of course, on stage or in front of a camera, and we're kind of telling a story without connecting with an audience. But as a storyteller, first of all, I don't have everything perfectly memorized. I know my story, but it's not word for word. And also, I'm speaking directly to the audience. And an interesting thing, a lot of times when I do storytelling in a kind of theatrical setting, the people in the theater will turn off all the lights, and we storytellers will say, "No, bring the lights back up. We want to be able to see."
You want to see their
listeners.
Reactions. Oh, that's
exactly.
true. I hadn't thought about that.
And so that's how I got into it. I lived in San Diego for a while. Then I met someone and got married and moved to Atlanta, Georgia. So I've been in Atlanta for a quarter of a century.
Well, you have lived all over.
I have.
I'm sure that influences your storytelling a little bit. I know you've done a lot of travels, which we'll get into that. So you started out to act. Is that right? To be an actor.
Yes.
What kinds of roles have you played? Where have you been?
Well, I've played a lot of different roles. I've been in the training program I did in San Diego is at a theater called the Old Globe Theater, which focuses on the classics. And if you're familiar with what the Old Globe means, the Old Globe was a big theater in England where Shakespeare premiered his plays and even performed in some of his plays. So we did a lot of classical training there, a lot of Shakespeare. So I've been in. It's believed that Shakespeare wrote about 37 plays, and I think I've been in about 14 of them.
Oh, goodness.
So done a lot of Shakespeare, and then, comedies, dramas, contemporary plays, new plays. I've done a little bit of dabbling in film and television, which we might talk about a little bit, but most of my work has been on stage.
That is great. I know you love that. It's going to be fun. Well, I know you sent me some snapshots. We'll go ahead and look through those, and that'll tell a little. I know they may not. They're about about storytelling and your work with students. So we'll just go through all of that.
Well, this one here is in a program I did in libraries. One year our theme. This year it's Tales and Tales, but one year it was Catch the Reading Bug. So it was all about bugs. So this was me telling. This was me as Mr. Bugaboo, and my program was called Mr. Bugaboo's Bugazoo. And this was me telling the story of the ant and the grasshopper, the old Aesop's fable, and the children are participating.
They are really into it, I can tell. That's fun.
And then this was fun. This was actually just recently. So during the pandemic, of course, when we've all kind of shifted what we've been doing, I've been doing a lot of storytelling online, and this was storytelling with students at a school in Shanghai, China.
Oh my goodness.
And it's at a school where they learn English, so I've done a good deal of storytelling overseas, whether live overseas or virtually overseas, but it's always, I do this with a company in Argentina called Dream On Productions that connects with schools overseas in lots of different countries. But it's always students who are learning English.
Okay.
And the one before was with students who were 2 to 6 years old learning English.
Oh,
if you can imagine.
Trying to hold their attention.
I know.
Goodness.
Yeah. And then this is me as a character from Shakespeare named Falstaff in a program called Shakespeare's Funhouse, where I tell the stories from Shakespeare for elementary school audiences in accessible ways as the different characters.
What a fun way for them to learn about Shakespeare at such a young age.
And then this is in a classroom. I do a lot of work in classes, and if you're familiar, you probably are with Eric Carle.
Yes. Yes. Oh, goodness.
And Eric Carle is a beloved children's author. He wrote The Very Grouchy Ladybug and The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And we had sad news that he passed away a few weeks ago.
So sad.
And we'll be doing one of his stories in our program today.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good. I can't wait.
But this is working with pre-K students in a school in Atlanta where we acted out an original story I made up, bringing together all of Eric Carle's stories.
How fun.
And then this is a fun thing I do many years. In December, there's a nature preserve in Atlanta that does a Yule log celebration.
Okay.
And I come and tell stories. So I had told a Native American story about the first snowflake, in which I do a paper cut of a snowflake, and I was giving it to a child. And you can see I'm bundled up around the campfire.
I see the fire there.
Yes. And the challenge there is staying on the right side of the fire so I don't get smoked out.
I think so.
And then this was one of my international ones. This is telling stories, folk tales, to a group of students in Bogota, Colombia. So this was live, and I tell stories from around the world, so I have a tapestry, a world tapestry backdrop that I use.
How fun.
And this is some of my work with teachers.
Oh,
so
good.
In my acting background, I teach teachers how to use drama in their teaching. And I work with a university in Boston named Lesley University, and there's a master's program for teachers. So this was a group of teachers in Colorado who had just performed their monologues.
Oh, how
That
fun.
was one of their assignments. And you could see one of them, the one on the right, actually dressed up as a historical figure from her town as a man. That's a woman, but she dressed up as a man and put on a little mustache, and they had a lot of fun performing their characters. This was a classroom of 5th graders where we were retelling the story of Mulan.
Okay, yes.
And you can see those 3 circles. Those are actually balloons that I have attached to a stick, and I use that as thought bubbles.
Oh,
so
okay.
getting the students to imagine what the characters were thinking at a certain point in the story. So they were all being soldiers and trying to figure out why Mulan, who was dressed up as a boy, why she's like, strange and different, and they're all having ideas.
We might pause here for just a second. I
Sure.
wanted to ask you, you've worked with preschool, elementary, and adults, and probably high school is in there?
Yes, yes.
That's quite a wide range.
I have also worked with seniors as well,
Oh,
senior
how
citizens
fun.
as well, yeah. So I work with all different ages. I'm not quite as comfortable with the 2- and 3-year-olds.
Well,
although I know we'll have some in our library
We'll have
program.
some young
but
ones
it helps when they're with their older siblings and they're with their parents and can get signals from around them.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
sure. They're learning how to do that.
They're learning how to be audience
great.
members.
Well, we're going to pause for a commercial break, and we'll be right back and talk some more with Barry.
Things a little bumpy in your driveway? Ox Foundation Solutions has the expertise and the know-how to repair cracks, wet basements and crawl spaces, and uneven floors in your home. Ox Foundation Solutions will come up with the right fix for you. It's time to get strong. How strong? Ox Strong. Get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Marble City Pharmacy in Sylacauga is your destination for the highest quality health care. Our knowledgeable pharmacists are always available for questions about your medications or advice on taking over-the-counter products and supplements. Our friendly staff can assist you in choosing from our full lines of compression hose and medical equipment. And don't forget our gift department. We have a great selection of unique gifts for every occasion. Stop by and see us today. Marble City Pharmacy, here for life.
Coosa Valley Medical Center, one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama, is also Sylacauga's largest employer. Services from the emergency room to surgery to cancer treatment to post-stroke care. You won't believe what's right in your backyard. It's Coosa Valley Medical Center in Sylacauga. So, if you're sick in Alabama, choose one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama. That is Coosa Valley Medical Center.
Welcome back to Library Connection. I'm talking with Barry Stewart Mann, who is an actor, storyteller, educator, and writer. We probably could do a 2-hour show. That is exciting. And we were talking. We were seeing some slides of things you've done. We might just go right back to those. I enjoy hearing about them.
That would be fine.
Okay. These are older students.
Yes, these are older students. So this was a project in high school, and this was looking back, it's kind of strange how this project was, because the students were reading a couple of books looking at the literature of social crisis crisis. There's a book by Elie Wiesel called Night about the Holocaust, and also a book called I Am Legend about a kind of a pandemic, basically.
Oh, well,
and so we used improvisation to create a world in which there was a pandemic going on, or there was a virus going around, and people had to be quarantined. And so that image was family members confronting people in a quarantine situation, because there was a member, we had the students in family groups, and we used improvisation, and you know, a member was being quarantined. And the tall fellow there, his character was a member of the Atlanta Hawks. He had created that as his character, and he was confronting the guard there, saying, "You have to let my mother out of this quarantine." But they were actually quarantining, like putting people in a rec center or in a, that was an interesting project.
For that group.
And then this was another library program. A couple of years ago, we had a theme, Fizz Boom Read, and we talked all about science. And I created a character named Sippin' Sam the Soda Man, and I had a paper bag puppet named Hoo How the Owl, who kept wanting to know who made things and how did they make them. And in this program, I didn't do folk tales or books or stories from books, but stories about how things got made, how television was invented, the background of popcorn and soda pop and fireworks. So it was a lot of fun doing a nonfiction program. This was during the pandemic. This was just this past February, where I told a story in a virtual storytelling festival out of India. So the gentleman to my right there runs the World Storytelling Institute in southern India. He's an American who moved to India, married an Indian woman, lives there. And you can see people from all over the world. There's a woman from Germany there, there's someone from Israel there, there are several Indian people there, there might be British people, and there were some others off camera, but telling online.
What a great way to connect with people. That's great.
And then this was another classroom acting thing, where we were acting out the final scene of a book called Sergio Saves the Game, about a penguin playing soccer. And these were first graders, and the first graders and I were all playing Sergio, who has the big kick that gets the soccer ball past the big mean old seagull that the teacher was playing.
Oh, how fun.
So in our arts integration work, we involve the teacher. It's both to educate the students and get the students involved, but also to give the teacher strategies to use in her teaching.
That's fun. Now, I've got to ask you, I know you talked about arts integration into the classroom.
Yes.
Why is that so important? I think it's important. Why?
We think it's important, the people that I work with. And what arts integration means is that we are not only teaching the content, whether it's social studies, language arts, math, science, but we are using an art form and also teaching about the art form. The state standards, I know in Georgia, I know in Alabama as well, we have state standards for teaching drama, music, art, dance. And classroom teachers who are familiar with those standards can teach those. You don't have to be a great dancer to teach about movement and about dance to your kindergartners or your third graders. And arts integration is a great way to get students involved, to get them up and moving, to get them interacting with each other. And it's often a great way to connect with the students who don't necessarily connect with paper. Or are not necessarily great readers. And oftentimes I like to say that the students who act up or act out, it's not a coincidence that those are students, they need to act in some way.
That's true.
And if we can get them to act through or act within, you know, they can often become leaders because they have the instincts for being dramatic, for being expressive, for getting attention, for telling a story.
Learning how to channel that and how to use that. I think it's great for kids to learn that. I mean, they may want to grow up and act or work behind the camera, or it might just be something fun. I mean, helping them learn.
Probably in anything many students do, they will have to express themselves, they will have to lead meetings, they will have to communicate.
Job interviews.
Job interviews. And of course nowadays, you know, even when we come out of our pandemic, we'll probably still be doing a lot of teleconference stuff.
Yes.
And still be doing a lot of Zoom stuff, a lot of remote things. The world has become a lot more connected.
Right, they have. Well, we'll look at some more of those.
So this was another project with high school students in a town near Atlanta. They did a project, the whole town did the Big Read, which is a project where an entire community will choose a book and read it together and do activities around it and have lectures. And they were reading, oh my goodness.
Is that To Kill a Mockingbird?
To Kill a Mockingbird.
I
Thank you.
I read about this.
It didn't come to my mind. And there's a line about to understand someone you have to walk a mile in their shoes. So for this, I put out, a dozen pair of shoes and had each student pick one pair and create a character. Imagine who was the person that goes with those shoes. So we were taking that line from the story and activating it through playwriting.
That's helping you think about other people.
Yes, exactly, developing
That's
empathy.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
And here's another Zoom storytelling event. This was when the pandemic first kind of set in and we were all kind of figuring out what to do. And so I started just doing some Zoom storytellings on my own with friends and family. So you can see me up there in one of the upper squares, and I was telling the story, another Eric Carle story of the A House for Hermit Crabs.
Yes.
And I had people from Argentina on this and also people from my neighborhood.
Oh, wow. All ages look
All
like
ages,
too. That's
yes.
fun.
Yes. And then here is a school project, and this was using something called Reader's Theater. Each class had developed a retelling of a fairy tale, and we had assigned characters. And you might be able to see they have placards on their chest saying what their character name was, and then we performed it at a PTA meeting. So these were third graders who got to perform for their parents and friends.
And that's where they just read the script.
Exactly.
It doesn't require you to memorize it. I mean,
and you can see it's done very simply. There aren't really costumes, there's not movement, there's not a set, but it's telling the story in character, and it focuses on vocal expression, using your voice to be your character.
Right. How fun. Okay. Here you go.
Now this was interesting. Several years ago, I had a great opportunity to travel to Peru in South America. And as part of our journey, we went to the Amazon rainforest. And very close to the lodge where we were, about a half-mile away on a trek down a path through the forest, there was a town called San Juan de Yanayacu. And the town has several hundred people, and it has maybe 100 students who all learn in one not very well-equipped schoolhouse. You saw it in the picture there. And so I offered to tell stories in Spanish. I think I did them all in Spanish because those students weren't learning English, and I speak enough Spanish to do it. And so we had students of different ages. It was actually on a day when they did not have school because the school teacher who does the 3-hour boat ride down the river to come from the big city of Iquitos, he had something different going on that day. So he couldn't come to the village to lead school. So they all came in from the soccer field in the little plaza among the houses to hear my stories.
Oh, that is so fun. I know they enjoyed it, especially in their own language.
It was fun, yeah. It was interesting. I think some of them were just unclear, like what it was. They didn't know what to expect. Who was this man, and why is he coming to tell the stories?
Maybe have never had someone besides their teacher.
Yeah,
really.
besides their teacher, exactly.
That's interesting. Well, we're going to pause for another commercial break, and we'll be right back to talk some more with Barry.
Things a little bumpy in your driveway? Ox Foundation Solutions has the expertise and the know-how to repair cracks, wet basements and crawl spaces, and uneven floors in your home. Ox Foundation Solutions will come up with the right fix for you. It's time to get strong. How strong? Ox Strong. Get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Marble City Pharmacy in Sylacauga is your destination for the highest quality health care. Our knowledgeable pharmacists are always available for questions about your medications or advice on taking over-the-counter products and supplements. Our friendly staff can assist you in choosing from our full lines of compression hose and medical equipment. And don't forget our gift department. We have a great selection of unique gifts for every occasion. Stop by and see us today. Marble City Pharmacy, here for life.
Coosa Valley Medical Center, one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama, is also Sylacauga's largest employer. Services from the emergency room to surgery to cancer treatment to post-stroke care. You won't believe what's right in your backyard. It's Coosa Valley Medical Center in Sylacauga. So, if you're sick in Alabama, choose one of the top 10 hospitals in Alabama. That is Coosa Valley Medical Center.
Welcome back to Library Connection. I'm talking with Barry Stewart Mann, who is an actor, storyteller, educator, and writer, and he's our performer today. We're going to hear tail wagging tales, but we were talking about you traveling around. You said you've been to Peru and India and several different places. Any other stories from those, interesting stories?
Well, sure, and I was mentioning that I was hoping to go to India. I have not been to India yet. I've been to India virtually, as you saw in one of those photos. I have been to Peru. I've been very fortunate that I have been able to travel to probably about 50 countries. When I was younger, I did a lot of, kind of shoestring traveling with a backpack and riding on trains and buses and staying in hostels. And so I've traveled through much of Europe and some of the Middle East and some of North Africa and a bit to East Asia as well. And then more recently, because I've connected with a company in Argentina that I mentioned called Dream On Productions that brings English language storytelling to countries all around the world. I've had the chance to go to Chile, to Argentina, and to Peru. With my family, I've traveled to Costa Rica and to Cuba, and I was invited back in 2012 to be a storyteller in the Festival Internacional de Cuentacuentos, the International Storytelling Festival in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. So I've traveled. I do speak some Spanish. I speak a little bit of French, or some French, a good amount of French, a little bit of German, and everywhere I go, I have a pretty good ear. There are some people who absorb languages, and some who say no matter what I do. But I'm fortunate that I do absorb, so I can count to 10 in Turkish.
Oh wow!
For example, yes, yeah.
That's I can count to 10 in Spanish, and that's about it. That is so exciting. I know you enjoy getting to meet a lot of different people and learn some other stories from other countries.
Yes.
How fun. Now, I want to talk a little bit too about your work in the schools. Do you go for a day? Do you go for a week?
It varies. Sometimes what I do is a storytelling program. Actually, this summer when I leave Sylacauga today, I'll be going to Columbus, Georgia, because they have some summer learning experience going on, and they are bringing in artistic experiences for the students as well. So I'm going in and doing a storytelling program about phonics.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
How interesting.
And so I do that where I go in for an hour into a school and do a program. And then there's some things called residencies where I'm partnering with a teacher, with a group of teachers, maybe the entire third grade. And then I would be working with the teacher, looking at the curriculum that she or he are working with, and figuring out how to use drama and storytelling to enhance the curriculum, to teach about drama and storytelling, and to get the kids up and moving. And sometimes that's just maybe I'll go in 5 times, and each lesson we're doing something different. But there are also times where there was one time I worked with 5th graders in a school in Atlanta, and we created videos based on scenes from the Civil War. And one class focused on an element in the social studies curriculum about the Gettysburg Address, and another class focused on Harriet Tubman, and another class focused on Harper's Ferry. And we studied the history, we created scenes, and then we actually filmed those. This was, of course, before COVID, but we filmed those and then had a movie night at the school, seeing movies about the Civil War. And that was a lot of fun.
Those kids will never forget those facts they learned about the Civil War.
And it is the facts, this is true, but also the feeling of what it might have been like. I know we had one scene in one of the stories of a Civil War hospital, and talking about the very difficult things, the choices that the doctors and nurses had to make, because of course medicine during the Civil War was not nearly as advanced as it is now, and there were amazing amounts of pain and suffering and difficult challenges. And so to have students understand how things were back then.
That is fun. I'm so glad you get to share that with students. What a wonderful way to learn history. I've even learned, I enjoy reading nonfiction books, and I can learn a lot from those. But I love learning history in the form of a story.
Yes.
It sticks with me a little better.
Yes, I'm a bit of a history geek as well, and I'm actually in the middle now of an audiobook about Lyndon Johnson.
Oh, goodness.
And I mean, I just finished volume 1 of 4 volumes, and the first volume had 18 CDs. So
oh, wow.
it's quite expansive.
That's interesting,
Yes.
though. How fun. And I know, do you teach a course, Cultural History Through Storytelling? Is
Yes.
that correct? Yeah.
Yes, in the work that I do at Lesley University, which is teacher training, I do 2 courses. One is Cultural History Through Storytelling, and the other is Critical Literacy, Drama and Critical Literacy. So it's basically a storytelling course and a drama course, and about using storytelling and using drama. But certainly in our storytelling course, we focus on storytelling as a way of understanding cultures of the world, and especially, folklore is such a valid channel to understanding how people in other places in the past have lived and how people in other places live, understanding their lifestyles, the food they eat, their weather, their landscape, their cultural traditions, their routines, and so on.
I think that makes us appreciate others and learn more about each other, maybe to get along better, I think. Makes the world a little smaller when you think that people are doing similar things that you're doing.
Yes.
How interesting. That's interesting. And I have to say, here you were 1999 Storyteller of the Year.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
It is wonderful. It's interesting because at that time there was a small festival in rural Ohio.
Okay.
And the woman who ran the festival coined the phrase National Storyteller of the Year.
Oh.
So I have to be honest to say that it sounds like there might have been a very large competition that involved thousands of people from around the country, but it was a bit more modest than that. It was people submitting their stories on videotape, and then they had a panel of judges and chose 3 and invited the 3 of us to come to Ohio, where there was the Sweet Corn Festival, I think it was, and we each performed our stories, and there were judges, and they chose mine.
How fun.
And mine was a story called The Improbable Love of Ethel and Elmer. And it's kind of a Romeo and Juliet, getting back to Shakespeare, meets Dr. Seuss. And it's an offbeat romance, and I won't tell you any more.
Oh, I'll have to look that up, Ethel and Elmer. We've got about a minute or so left. How do you choose good stories to tell?
Oh, this is a wonderful question. A wonderful question, Mandy, because the key thing is you have to like the story. And so I don't go in, I go through books of stories. You're a librarian, our 396s is where we find our folk tales. Is it 396, 398?
Oh, 398.2. 398.2.
That's where all the folk tales are.
Yes.
And I can just get lost in the 398s. And I will flip through a book and I'll just read the first paragraph of a story and say, nah, it doesn't. And because there are stories, as a storyteller, I have stories I've been telling for 25 years.
Oh, they're still good.
But I love telling them, and they never get old. And so I think the thing is, you have to find a story you like, you identify what you like, and then you can tell them.
That is so fun. So you're always looking and listening,
Always looking for more.
How fun. Well, I'm excited about our program today, Tail Wagging Tales. Ben, you came up with, or that may have been one you already had, but our theme is about animals, tails and tales. So is that one you just put together for summer?
Every summer for the libraries, I put together at least one, usually 2 new programs. So I have Tail Wagging Tales. I also have a program of folklore that I've been taking to some libraries. But for Tail Wagging Tales, I did choose, I think I have at least one story that I've told before, a couple of stories I've told in different ways, but also stories that I've never told before.
Oh, fun.
That are brand new to me. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. Well, if you want to find out more about Barry Stewart Mann, you have a website.
Yes, so my name is Barry Stewart Mann, and my website is barrystewartmann.com. My email is barrystewartmann@hotmail.com.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I can't wait to hear these stories. And thank you so much for joining me on Library Connection.